So there are a lot of good reasons why you or anyone you know who is a good writer will not be published, because here is the truth. Given that there are so many terrible authors out there, we know that good writers don't always get published, and that the publishing industry is highly illogical, and it is driven by numbers, by greed, by fame. Even an author who's famous, who writes the same nonsense every time, will get a new book published just because of money. And we know this. So we know that good writers don't get published. And in this video, we'll be talking about something that you actually have a control over. Complete control, which is about your writing and how you write. And I'll be analyzing your stories and your writing in order to show how this writing, for example, can be improved by simply doing one simple trick. Just one trick. Okay? And we'll be talking about that. But first of all, who are these two people? They're members of the audience. They sent me a Gmail message, they emailed me, and they requested that I read these stories, and I requested to include, and I agreed to include them into the chapter 1 analysis series. And so in this particular video, we'll be talking about the biggest trick that you actually have a complete control over in order to improve your odds of getting published. Tomorrow, you could be a published author. So let's talk about this particular two paragraphs, because you see, in this trick is encapsulated by looking at this paragraph and then comparing this paragraph with the second paragraph. Because you see, the second paragraph will get you published, but the first paragraph will guarantee, okay? The first paragraph, I promise you, will guarantee that you never get published. In a billion years, you will never be published with this. But you can easily get published if you just write an entire book that is like this second paragraph. In the summer of 2012, anyway, in the first paragraph, it says, with breaking hearts, love disembarked from Paramount parties on Earth. Promiscuously, zombies barked their lips together like a sport. And in the clubs and in the bed, these zombies walked themselves through easy gusts where lust allowed its breeze to hum. But then one echo roared to never fade. Love's echo roars to never fade. That's kind of a mistake, but whatever. Its sonic blast forever lasts, pushing zombies on the ground to stop the chase. When souls instead of bodies clash, this single echo roars to never fade. Love's echo roars to never fade. This paragraph sounds romantic, and it's actually, when you look at the entire book, not necessarily a disconnected paragraph, because the story's theme actually has a lot to do with love and disillusionment and all those different things. I read the synopsis sent by the author, but you see, this is nonetheless, on a vacuum, for someone who has never read this book, a bad paragraph. You don't want to start with this. Instead, you want to start with this. Wearing a black leather jacket over a white t-shirt, Hanky stood in the woods in a spot where trees didn't grow, forming a circular spot of dead pine, ill grass and drying dirt. The jacket once belonged to his father, but everything about the white shirt underneath it was Hanky's. However, it goes here, but the gun he held against his thigh felt as if it belonged to no one. That is what I'm talking about. Look at this. Look at this paragraph. It's beautiful because you see this sentence, this description of where he stood, and then the jacket, the description of the jacket, and everything about it was was Hanky's. It all comes together. These two sentences come together in order to create a very beautiful mixture where we are led and guided to the gun, because this is his, but the jacket belonged to his father. And it hooks us onto what is going to happen and why he's standing in this spot in the woods, in a spot where trees didn't grow. What is he doing with a gun against his thigh? I mean, that's awesome. So you see, these two paragraphs encapsulate why many books and why good writers don't get published. At the end of the day, It's about balance and focus. You can be a good writer. You can be good with characters. You can be good with prose. You can be good at at world building. You can be good with research. You can be good with dialogue. You can have amazing subtext. But at the end of the day, if you do not have balance, if you don't have good pacing, and if you are incapable of focusing on the right things, you will not really get published. The first paragraph spends too much time focusing on things that don't matter. But the second paragraph hooks us immediately by the end of it. By the end of the first paragraph, you will not put this book down. But of course, this paragraph. And by the end of the actual first paragraph, you have already faded away by the second sentence. You don't care about this book. This paragraph will not get you to care about it. But this will. And as you see, this problem of this book being unfocused and badly paced literally is one of the biggest problems. And I have another book by another author who I will take a look at. But of course, the problems are the opposite. This one never really focuses on the right thing. So what's the right thing? It's the gun he held against his thigh, and why. And so we have this paragraph and this paragraph, and these paragraphs, and this paragraph here, and this paragraph here, and this one here. None of these paragraphs ever focus on the one thing that hooked us, which is the gun. And I read the whole thing, so I'll basically show you. His parted lips exhaled his wish as fast as thunder disappears. The pine and willow branches hissed like sharp applause at a premiere. Look, we are hooked onto the gun. At this point, you spent too much time proselytizing about love. So, now that we are actually hooked on the gun, you don't need to talk about anything else except everything that relates to this. And you'll see as the book continues, this problem gets crazier and crazier. Nothing significant happens for another 4 paragraphs. Anyway, he opened his eyes, right? Hanky opened his eyes. There was an immense lack of surprise in his eyes. Blinking was the only thing he seemed comfortable with doing presently. His grimacing lips quivered. This paragraph continues and continues. Too many thoughts. Exactly, that's the problem with the writing. He blinked again with disappointment, making a fleeting pass across the gloss of his eyes. The ivory fluff forgave him once again with whispers that were hushing. Look, we are talking about the trees again. We need to stop talking about the trees and the wind. Oh, here it goes here. As the wind's repetitive statement shouted into non-existent. Well, that's a very expensive way of saying. The wind calmed. He looked around the forest. Every tree was thrice the size. So once again, we're really focused on the trees, not on the gun. He closed his eyes again. So he closed his eyes here, and then he opened them, and then he's closing them again. I mean, that's really bad pacing. This is really too much. He pictured it, a love worth living for. Oh, how he pictured it too much, so much. How relieving it felt as he, as he let himself unlock the vault of his imagination again. Once again, we are spending too many paragraphs, unfocused, completely terrible pacing, forgiving winds. Once again, opening the white curtains with summer's orchid. They would spin around the growling, retwirling, rebels. Basically, I read the whole thing, but it's really a repetitive problem that continues to just keep beating and hammering at the reader, which is, we have a book that is terribly unfocused. Those songs about the outbreak were a bore. The ivory rose watched, observing like a ring of wedding. This is too many similes, bro. Glad they got to pick whatever, the branches that surrounded Hanky. Once more, we're back to the branches, like an arena of spectators. Bro laughed when the summer wind whispered to every, look, this book, this is a novel, it's not poetry, but fundamentally, this is bad pacing. The passing gust passed. Okay, the passing gust passed. It passed. It's passing, so it passed. We know that. Anyway, I'm being an asshole. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm being a little bit too harsh, but we have to really underscore the reality that this is fundamentally a good writer. He is focused on the thematic content of the story. Many published authors who are terrible will have well-paced books, meaning they will not make the mistake he's making here. However, their characters will be shallow. They'll have empty characters. This guy seems to have a character with a substance. And actually, yeah, as I can confirm. But as you read this paragraph more and more, chapter 1, you'll realize the character has substance. So he's not a bad writer. But he doesn't have good pacing. This is bad pacing. They sat against one another in cafeteria branch. Again, like there in the center of the woods where trees batted to form that circle of grass. Once more, we are talking about the grass and the trees and the circle. I mean, there is never a single story that connects back to the single theme that hooked the reader, which is this sentence here. And I'll show you again. So that's one book. Once again, this book is really not bad. It really explores basically a lot of manipulation. And it is almost like an epic fantasy, because there's a lot of fantasy involved with witches and curses and entire kingdoms losing their magic. And so it's a very epic book. So the author actually does not essentially do everything wrong, except one of the biggest problems that, you know, unpublished writers fall into. And that is, this book is the opposite problem. It is too fast. I promise you, this paragraph and this paragraph and this paragraph, which are 3 paragraphs, they each present a new major information. Okay? So the first paragraph, the intruder, of course, you know, keep that in mind, right? The intruder, because there is someone. This particular, you know, girl wakes up. Destiny awoke with a feeling of foreboding, unsure what had jolted her from her strange recurring dream. So the author now establishes a recurring dream. So we keep this dream in mind because that's the objective, right? She flicked on the bedside light and scanned the room. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She listened to the rain pouring onto the roof of the Victorian house. The sound calmed her when her sleep became troubled. Okay, so far, not really bad. Very good, I would say. I mean, when we are talking about being unpublished, I mean, this is good. This is off to a great start. We have a recurring dream. We have something strange. And then we have an intruder. And so there are a lot of things being established that are very good. She grabbed her sketchbook, right? Grabbing her sketchbook, Destiny drew a detailed portrait of someone she had never met, other than in her unusual dreams. So you have strange recurring dreams. Then she is trying to draw what she saw in her unusual, strange recurring dream. So a flash of lightning. This is where the problems start. Write at this sentence. That's where the problems start. So right now, up to this point, the objective of the story or the narrative has been, she had a dream, she got up, and she's sketching what she saw in her dream. So we really want to know about that dream. And so we are following this story. But then we are whiplashed into another story. We are literally jolted into another story. It goes, a flash of lightning startled her, breaking her concentration. She stared out of the window as another bolt lit up the sky, silhouetting a figure as it leaped from a nearby tree. So we were following the sketching of the figure, the recurring dream, the unusual dream, right? But now we have someone else. A bolt, a silhouetting figure. It leaped as it leaped from a nearby tree. And that's an it. So as it leaped from a nearby tree. And you can see how we have been whiplashed from one story into another story of figuring out who's the intruder. So what do I follow? Do I want to know about the dream and the sketch, or do I want to know about the figure that leapt when the lightning struck? She has, by the way, cerebral palsy. So all this indicate that she has a cerebral palsy. so having cerebral palsy sucked, she sighed and stretched her legs, then dropped her sketchbook. Okay, so now she has dropped her sketchbook at the sound of a strange noise coming from downstairs. This is the intruder. She stood up, slipped her dressing gown over her shoulders, and headed for the bedroom door. She made it about 2 steps before tripping over something. So now she tripped, okay, which sent her crashing to the floor, okay. Cursing under her breath, she picked herself up. Her elbow burned, and a dull ache shot through her knee. She inspected her elbow and sighed at the sight of a nasty carpet burn. The brass door handle creaked loudly as it turned in. I mean, in no less than a page and a half, we have introduced a dream, sketching that dream, a strange figure, her dad, and then we introduced her cerebral palsy, which is also a very interesting detail, which is here. Then we introduce her slipping, tripping over, and then a creak on the door. I mean, this is a thriller at this point. I don't think thriller books go this fast. I genuinely have never read a thriller book that goes this fast. This is too fast. There is no opportunity to immerse yourself. So into this book, everything is just whiplashing. And I don't think the author is bad. Actually, he's focused on the right things. He just never gives any of them time to shine. He never gives any of them time to shine. And in here, you have the author gives everything too much time, especially the trees. He really loves the trees and describing the trees. And so you have these two authors who are on the opposite extremes. They are both on the opposite extremes of, this particular issue, this problem of pacing, where one of them is too slow and too unfocused and gives the wrong things too much attention. And this author, while he does go faster, he talks about the right things because it's the intruder, right? He's talking about the intruder. She's going toward the door. She is going toward the door, and there is a creak toward the door. This is actually better. But this story ultimately does not give any breathing window. And so you have these two extremes. And pacing is one of the most important things for writing stories. And you have to master this. Even me, I'm not a master of this. Some of my chapters will be well-paced, others will not. And I have to go and fix that pacing issue because the audience must not be assumed to be like you. When you write the story, you can't assume. So the biggest problem here is that you have to, in this book, the author assumes the reader can keep up. And in this book, the author assumes that the reader cares about the wrong things. And both create bad pacing. So that's two ways you can create bad pacing. And it's really important, very, very important, that you go ahead and create a mixture, a very healthy, balanced diet. So that is the thesis of this particular video. And I hope both of them don't think I'm an asshole. I am very harsh when it comes to these things, but that's because I'm used to my friends. We do this all the time. We are this harsh to each other. Anyway, so I hope that you took something from this. Have a nice day.